Victor Mallory's weathered hands trembled as he lifted the leather-bound journal from beneath the pile of moss-covered stones. 11 years of Appalachian weather had taken its toll on the cover, but the faded initials CA remained unmistakable. Standing in the clearing, sunlight filtering through ancient trees, Victor's breath caught in his throat. After more than a decade of whispered legends and fruitless searches, he held the first tangible evidence of what happened to the 6 medical students who vanished without a trace in these very woods. The handyman brushed away decades of dirt from the journal's surface, careful not to damage the fragile binding. This wasn't just any lost item. This was Clara Aldridge's diary, a medical student whose disappearance, along with 5 classmates, had haunted Stonehaven since that fateful October in 2013. "I found it right here," Victor later told investigators, pointing to the hollow beneath a cluster of weathered boulders near an ancient stone wall. "Something told me to move those rocks, never expected to uncover the truth behind Stonehaven's darkest mystery." The discovery sent shockwaves through the small Appalachian community. For 11 years, locals had speculated about the fate of Clara Aldridge, Benjamin Harlow, Olivia Rivers, Nathan Everett, Darius Flynn, and Zoe Sinclair, 6 promising medical students who entered the wilderness on a mission of mercy and never returned. Before we uncover what happened to these 6 students, comment where you're watching from right now. If you're fascinated by unsolved disappearances, hit the subscribe to join our Last Seen Stories community. The morning of October 17, 2013, dawned crisp and clear over Westridge University Medical School. 6 students gathered outside the campus center, loading medical supplies into 2 rugged SUVs. Each brought unique skills to their ambitious volunteer mission. Clara Aldridge, 24, stood checking off items on her meticulously organized list. The team leader had spent months planning this outreach. Tall, with auburn hair always pulled back in a practical bun, Clara approached medicine with the same precision she applied to everything in life. Her journal, bound in brown leather with her initials embossed on the cover, never left her side. "We're still missing the portable blood pressure cuffs," she called out, glancing up from her checklist. Benjamin Harlow, 26, hefted another box into the vehicle. The former Eagle Scout had the most wilderness experience of the group. "Already packed them in the emergency kit," he replied, flashing a reassuring smile. Ben's calm demeanor balanced Clara's intensity, the stabilizing force of their close-knit group. Olivia Rivers leaned against the SUV, absently twirling a strand of her dark hair. At 23, she was the youngest and most intuitive of the 6. "Has anyone actually been to this place before?" she asked, voicing the concern she'd harbored since agreeing to the trip. "I've heard stories about those woods." "Folk tales," dismissed Darius Flynn, 25, the skeptic with an analytical mind sharper than his wit. His background in scientific research made him dismissive of superstition. "The only real danger is ticks, and maybe the occasional bear." Nathan Everett, 25, glanced up from securing medical supplies. "My grandfather grew up near those mountains," he said quietly. "He called it the Vale of Whispers, said strange things happen there when the fog rolls in." Zoe Sinclair, 24, laughed, her practical nature evident in her no-nonsense approach. "The strangest thing we'll see is how people live without proper health care. That's why we're going." Their destination, a cluster of isolated settlements in the remote corners of Appalachia, communities forgotten by modern medicine. The plan was straightforward: travel the rugged trails, set up temporary clinics, and document health challenges faced by the isolated population. That evening, as they made their first camp at the edge of the dense forest locals called the Vale of Whispers, Clara wrote in her journal, "Day 1 complete. 6 hours of driving followed by a challenging hike. Tomorrow we reach the first settlement. The forest here feels ancient, watching us. Ben says I'm being dramatic, but Olivia feels it too. The others are sleeping now. The stars are brilliant tonight. No light pollution. Despite the warnings from that old man at the gas station, spirits are high. We're going to help people forgotten by the system, and nothing is more important than that. None of them noticed the mist beginning to gather in the valley below, nor the strange silence that had fallen over the woods as darkness claimed the wilderness. Day 2 began with promise. The morning light filtered through autumn leaves as the team broke camp and continued their journey deeper into the forest. By noon, they'd reached the narrow trail that would lead them to the first settlement. Clara documented their progress meticulously in her journal, noting landmarks and coordinates. At 2:17 p.m., according to Clara's final time-stamped entry for that day, everything changed. The fog came from nowhere. One minute we were walking under clear skies, and the next we could barely see each other. It's unnaturally thick and seems to swallow sound. Darius says it's just a weather phenomenon common to mountain valleys. But it feels wrong somehow. The 6 students huddled close, visibility reduced to mere feet in any direction. The trail that had been clearly marked moments before now seemed to vanish beneath the swirling white mist. Later, searchers would discover Darius's small black notebook abandoned beside the trail. Its water-damaged pages contained hastily scrawled observations. Unusual markings on rock formations appeared to be carved but eroded by time. Geometric patterns unlike anything I've seen in nature. Some seem to emit faint luminescence in the fog. Possibly bioluminescent lichen? Must collect samples. Below his notes were crude drawings of symbols, concentric circles, spiraling lines, and triangular formations that made no sense to investigators. As twilight approached, the group made the fateful decision to set up an emergency camp rather than risk continuing in the deteriorating conditions. According to Clara's journal, tension had begun to fracture their once unified team. Ben wants to turn back at first light. Zoe and Darius insist we press on. The settlements need us. Olivia is increasingly agitated, claims she saw someone watching us from the trees. Nathan tried to investigate but found nothing. This fog is disorienting everyone. The forest sounds different now. No birds, no insects. Just the occasional whisper that might be wind through leaves, or something else. At approximately 11:30 p.m., according to Clara's final journal entry for that night, the group heard it. A bone-chilling cry that echoed through the fog-shrouded forest. Not animal, not human, but something in between that sent ice through their veins. It came from everywhere and nowhere. Ben grabbed the flashlight, but its beam barely penetrated the mist. Nathan thought he saw movement and went to check. He's been gone 10 minutes now and won't answer our calls. Darius wants to go look for him. Olivia is in tears. The cry came again, closer this time. Something is out there, watching, waiting. We should never have come. The entry ended mid-sentence. When dawn broke the next morning, a hiker discovered their abandoned camp. Sleeping bags lay open and empty. Medical supplies scattered across the clearing. Clara's journal was missing. 6 backpacks remained. Personal items untouched. The only signs of disturbance were the deep gouges in the earth around the perimeter of the camp, marks that no animal known to the region could have made. Within hours, search and rescue teams flooded the area. Helicopters with thermal imaging scanned the dense canopy. Tracking dogs followed scents that inexplicably vanished at the edge of a small creek. For 3 weeks, teams combed every inch of the surrounding 5 miles. They found nothing, no bodies, no blood, no further signs of the 6 students. They had vanished as completely as if the forest itself had swallowed them whole. 6 families' lives shattered in an instant. 6 empty chairs at Thanksgiving tables. 6 futures erased without explanation. Diana Aldridge clutched her daughter's framed medical school acceptance letter during the first press conference, her voice breaking as she pleaded for information. Clara was meticulous. She wouldn't just get lost. Something happened to them. Someone knows something. Michael Harlow, Benjamin's father, quit his job to move to Stonehaven, renting a small cabin at the forest's edge, where he conducted his own daily searches for 5 years before his health failed him. The authorities gave up too soon. He told local reporters on the 5th anniversary of the disappearance, "My son is out there somewhere." Westridge University faced mounting pressure. Why had the volunteer trip been approved despite local warnings? Why wasn't a faculty advisor required to accompany the students? The medical school established 6 memorial scholarships in the missing students' names, a gesture that did little to answer the growing list of questions. Sheriff Thomas Blackwood, who led the initial investigation, defended his department's efforts at a tense town meeting 6 months after the disappearance. "We've utilized every available resource. The FBI has been involved. Search and rescue experts from 3 states contributed. Sometimes the wilderness simply doesn't give up its secrets." Media attention peaked during the 1st anniversary, then gradually waned. Occasional "Where Are They Now" segments aired on slow news days. Online forums debated increasingly outlandish theories. The case grew cold. Meanwhile, in diners and on porches throughout Stonehaven, locals exchanged hushed theories. Some blamed a survivalist cult rumored to inhabit the deepest reaches of the forest. Others pointed to the region's history of unexplained disappearances dating back to colonial times. Eliza Thompson, owner of Stonehaven's only bookstore, began collecting accounts of strange phenomena reported in the forest. "Every generation has its stories about the Veil of Whispers," she told a documentary crew in 2018. "Hunters who follow strange lights and lose 3 days without memory. Hikers who hear their names called by voices they recognize but cannot place. The students aren't the first to vanish there, just the most recent." The forest kept its secrets for 11 long years, the disappearance fading from headlines into legend, until Victor Mallory moved those stones. Victor Mallory had lived in Stonehaven for all of his 62 years. His calloused hands had built or repaired most structures in the small town. A widower of 15 years, he filled his retirement with solo hikes through the lesser-traveled paths of the surrounding wilderness. "Never been much for company," he told Detective Lauren Reeves after his discovery. "Prefer the quiet of the woods, get to know its moods, its secrets." April 23, 2024 began as any other day for Victor. He set out at dawn to clear an overgrown trail near the ancient stone wall locals claimed predated European settlement. The spring air carried the scent of wildflowers and damp earth as he worked, methodically removing fallen branches and cutting back invasive vines. Around midday, Victor's attention was drawn to an unusual rock formation, a deliberate arrangement of stones partially concealed by moss and fallen leaves. As he cleared away the debris, he noticed a hollow beneath the largest boulder. "Something caught the light," he later recalled. "Just a flash of metal where no metal should be." Reaching into the darkness, his fingers touched leather. Carefully extracting the object, Victor found himself holding a journal, its cover weather-worn but intact. The faded initials CA were still visible on the front. Victor knew immediately what he'd found. Everyone in Stonehaven remembered Clara Aldridge. He sat on a nearby fallen log, his discovery heavy in his hands. For nearly an hour, he debated whether to open it. Part of him feared what secrets might lie within those pages. Another part knew that 6 families had waited 11 years for answers. "Wasn't my place to read it," he explained later, "but I had to know if it was real." Opening to a random page confirmed his suspicions. The handwriting grew increasingly frantic toward the latter entries, the ink smudged in places by what might have been tears or rain. Victor closed the journal and placed it carefully in his backpack. The hike back to town was the longest of his life. each step weighted with the knowledge that he carried the first real clue to a mystery that had haunted their community for over a decade. As he approached the sheriff's office, doubts plagued him. Would they take him seriously? Would this bring closure or just reopen wounds finally beginning to heal? In the end, the decision was simple. 6 families deserved whatever truth the journal might hold. Have you ever discovered something that gave you chills? Drop a like if you believe some mysteries are meant to be solved. Clara's journal was a standard medical student's diary, bound in brown leather, its pages lined and dated. The cover, though weathered by years beneath stone and soil, still retained its original shape. Mud had seeped into the edges, but remarkably, most pages remained legible. Forensic analysts noted that the journal had been protected from complete deterioration by the specific arrangement of stones, almost as if someone had deliberately placed it to be preserved rather than destroyed. The first entries dated back 2 weeks before the trip, detailing Clara's preparations and hopes for their mission. September 30th, 2013, grant approved. The university has finally given us the green light for the Appalachian Outreach Program. 6 of us, 3 weeks, potentially hundreds of patients who haven't seen a doctor in years. This is why I went into medicine. October 5th, 2013, supply list finalized. Ben's wilderness experience is proving invaluable. Darius keeps questioning the necessity of paper records, but technology won't be reliable where we're going. Olivia seems hesitant lately, says she's been having strange dreams about forests and fog, probably just pre-trip anxiety. October 15th, 2013, final preparations complete. Zoe's grandmother tried to give her some kind of charm for protection. Apparently, she grew up near where we're heading and had some superstitious warning about the Veil of Whispers. Nathan mentioned his grandfather had similar stories. Interesting cultural phenomenon, but ultimately irrelevant to our medical mission. The entries shifted tone after their arrival in the region. October 17th, 2013, Day 1. Something about these woods feels ancient. The trees here must be hundreds of years old. On the drive-in, we stopped for supplies at a small general store. The elderly owner asked about our destination. When we told him, his expression changed. He tried to warn us about going too deep into the forest, especially with the changing weather. Said people go missing this time of year. Ben laughed it off, but I noticed Olivia lingering to hear more. October 18th, 2013, Day 2, morning. We should reach the first settlement by afternoon. Darius took samples of some unusual moss formations. Zoe cataloged 3 medicinal plants not on our reference guides. The trails are more overgrown than our maps indicated, suggesting few people come this way, despite the settlements supposedly being just ahead. Then came the entry that marked the beginning of their ordeal. October 18th, 2013, 2:17 p.m. The fog is unnatural. It descended so quickly, none of us had time to properly mark our trail. Visibility reduced to less than 10 feet in all directions. Temperature dropped at least 15 degrees in minutes. Ben says we should stop and wait it out, but Darius insists we're less than a mile from the first settlement, according to GPS. Oddly, although reception is non-existent, the GPS still shows our position, but the trail we're following doesn't appear on any map. October 18th, 2013, 6:40 p.m. We've decided to make emergency camp. No sign of the fog lifting. Olivia is increasingly agitated, claims she saw someone or something watching from the trees. Dark silhouette, too tall to be human. None of the rest of us saw anything but the way she described it. I've never seen Olivia this frightened. Nathan went to investigate but found nothing. The forest has gone completely silent. No wildlife sounds at all. October 18th, 2013, 8:15 p.m. Darius made a disturbing discovery. The rocks along this part of the trail are covered in symbols, carved glyphs, unlike anything we've seen before. Some appear freshly cut, others weathered by time. He's fascinated, but Ben wanted to move away from them immediately. We compromised by making camp nearby while Darius documented the markings. He says they remind him of mathematical equations or star charts, but arranged in patterns that make no logical sense. October 18th, 2013, 9:30 p.m. Olivia is refusing to sleep. Says whenever she closes her eyes, she can hear whispering in a language she doesn't understand, but somehow recognizes. Zoe tried to convince her it's just the wind in the leaves, but there is no wind tonight. The air is completely still. Even Ben seems unsettled now. He keeps checking and rechecking his compass, which hasn't pointed north since the fog came in. The entries revealed mounting tensions as fear began to overtake the group's scientific training. October 18th, 2013, 10:45 p.m. We've divided into two camps now. Darius and Zoe want to continue at first light, convinced the settlements must be nearby. Ben, Olivia, and I think we should retrace our steps and get back to civilization. Nathan is torn. He believes we should complete our mission, but acknowledges something is very wrong here. The argument grew heated. I've never seen Ben lose his temper before, but when Darius suggested Olivia was mentally unstable, Ben nearly struck him. This place is changing us all. The most disturbing entries came in the final hours before their disappearance. October 18th, 2013, 11:20 p.m. Something is circling our camp. We can hear footsteps in the underbrush, too deliberate to be an animal, too heavy to be human. When we shine lights toward the sound, the beam seems to bend around whatever's out there. Darius says it's just fatigue making us imagine things. Zoe has fallen silent, just staring into the darkness. I fear we've made a terrible mistake coming here. October 18th, 2013, 11:30 p.m. The cry was unlike anything I've ever heard. Not animal, not human. It pierced through the fog like a physical force. Nathan grabbed a flashlight and went to investigate despite our protests. He's been gone 10 minutes now. Ben is preparing to search for him. The cry came again, closer this time. Olivia says she can see shapes moving in the mist. Multiple figures, tall and distorted. Darius still insists there's a rational explanation, but his voice is shaking. We should never have come, This was the final entry that ended mid-sentence. The next dozen pages remained blank until a single, undated entry appeared in handwriting so frantic it barely resembled Clara's careful script. They're hunting us, separated from the others. The symbols are a warning, not a welcome. These woods belong to something ancient, intelligent, patient. They collect us like specimens. I've seen what they did to Nathan. The sound he made wasn't human anymore. If anyone finds this, stay away from the stone circles. The one who speaks through the fog is not what it appears to be. Breathing is difficult now. They're getting closer. I can hear them whispering my name. May God forgive us for disturbing what should have remained buried. The final page contained a hastily sketched map showing what appeared to be a series of concentric stone circles deep in the forest, with a single word scrawled repeatedly around its edges: Gateway. Forensic analysis later confirmed that all entries were indeed written by Clara Aldridge. Soil samples embedded in the journal's binding matched the area where Victor found it. Most significantly, the journal contained trace elements of an unidentified organic compound that scientists could not categorize. A compound also found on the strange symbols carved into rocks near the student's last known location. Detective Lauren Reeves had been with the Stonehaven Police Department for only 3 years when Victor Mallory walked in with Clara's journal. At 34, she represented a new generation of law enforcement in the small town, one that relied on forensic science as much as local knowledge. The journal changes everything, she announced at the first briefing after its discovery. This isn't a cold case anymore. This is an active investigation. The journal underwent extensive analysis. Paper experts confirmed its age matched the time of disappearance. Handwriting specialists verified Clara's authorship. Most importantly, the crude map in the final pages gave investigators something they'd lacked for 11 years, a specific location to search. The stone circles weren't documented in the original investigation, Reeves explained to the assembled search team. They're in a valley 3 miles northeast of where the students' camp was found, an area that was searched but not extensively due to the difficult terrain. On May 2, 2024, a team of investigators, forensic experts, and search specialists entered the forest, guided by Clara's map. What they discovered sent shockwaves through the investigation. Deep in the forest, hidden by dense undergrowth and surrounded by the oldest trees in the region, stood a series of concentric stone circles exactly as Clara had drawn them. The massive stones, each weighing several tons, were arranged with mathematical precision. Carbon dating later revealed they were over 3,000 years old. Most disturbing were the items discovered buried at precise intervals around the circles. A stethoscope with Zoe Sinclair's initials engraved on the chest piece, Benjamin Harlow's distinctive wilderness knife, Olivia Rivers' silver bracelet, Nathan Everett's watch, its face shattered, but the hands frozen at 11:37 p.m., the approximate time of the group's disappearance. Of Darius Flynn, they found his camera, the memory card intact, but corrupted beyond recovery except for a single image, a blurred photograph of what appeared to be a tall, unnaturally thin figure standing between the trees, its proportions distorted in ways that defied anatomical possibility. Local news stations camped outside the forest perimeter as items were cataloged and removed. National media picked up the story, framing it as the breakthrough in one of America's most baffling disappearances. 6 families, who had long ago held memorial services without bodies to bury, found themselves thrust back into a nightmare they'd been trying to escape for over a decade. "We just want to know what happened to our children," Hannah Rivers, Olivia's mother, told reporters. "After all these years, we deserve the truth, whatever it may be." This investigation continues to unfold. Share this video with someone who appreciates an unsolved mystery. As the investigation progressed, 3 distinct theories emerged to explain the students' disappearance. The first, labeled the wilderness casualty theory by investigators, suggested the simplest explanation. The students became disoriented in sudden heavy fog, separated in panic, and succumbed to the elements or accidental injuries. Supporters pointed to similar cases where experienced hikers made fatal errors in unfamiliar terrain. "Fog can be profoundly disorienting," explained wilderness survival expert Marcus Tanner. "Add darkness, unfamiliar surroundings, and rising panic, you have a recipe for disaster." Clara's journal indicates escalating fear and possible hallucinations consistent with extreme stress. Yet this theory failed to explain several critical factors: the lack of bodies despite extensive searches, the strange symbols documented by multiple students, and the precise arrangement of their belongings around the stone circles miles from their last camp. The second theory involved human interference, specifically a secretive group protecting illegal activities deep in the forest. These mountains have a long history of isolation and distrust of outsiders, noted criminal psychologist Dr. Eleanor Winters. Illegal operations, from moonshine to methamphetamine production to marijuana cultivation, have used these remote areas for generations. The students may have inadvertently stumbled upon something they weren't meant to see. This theory gained traction when investigators discovered records of unusual chemical runoff in local waterways in 2013, potentially indicating large-scale drug production. Additionally, several locals reported encounters with hostile off-gridders who aggressively defended certain territories within the forest. Most compelling was testimony from Jackson Reeves, no relation to Detective Reeves, who claimed to have been briefly held captive by a forest cult in 2010 after accidentally crossing into their territory. His description of carved symbols and ritualistic behavior echoed elements of Clara's journal. Yet the third theory, one that gained surprising support from rational, educated investigators, ventured into territory many found difficult to accept. The archaeological significance of the stone circles cannot be overstated, Dr. Amelia Thornton, anthropologist from Westridge University, stated in her assessment. These structures predate any known settlement in the region by thousands of years. Their astronomical alignment and mathematical precision suggest a level of sophistication inconsistent with known indigenous cultures of the area. The symbols documented in both Darius's notebook and Clara's journal matched no known writing system, yet contained recurring patterns suggesting linguistic structure. Similar symbols had been discovered at only one other location in North America, a cave system in New Mexico where 3 researchers vanished without trace in 1978. Local folklore specialist Thomas Bradley compiled historical accounts of disappearances in the region dating back to 1734, when a British surveying party of 8 men vanished in the same area. Their journals, recovered months later, described figures that walk in fog and stones that whisper. In 1872, a group of loggers refused to work in what they called the Whispering Forest, claiming to have seen men taller than trees with eyes like lanterns moving through the mist. In 1943, 3 hunters disappeared, leaving behind a hastily written note about something watching from between worlds. Whatever happened to those students, Bradley concluded, has been happening in these woods for centuries. The journal isn't just evidence of their fate, it's a warning. As of this recording, the investigation remains active. Detective Reeves and her team continue to analyze evidence from the stone circles. Specialized equipment monitors the area for unusual activity. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed underground chambers beneath the circles that remain unexplored due to safety concerns. Clara's journal has been returned to her parents, who have declined all interview requests. The families of the other 5 students have formed a coalition funding private investigators to pursue leads law enforcement cannot or will not follow. The stone circles have been declared off-limits to the public, though this hasn't stopped amateur investigators and thrill-seekers from attempting to reach the site. 3 such trespassers were reported missing last month, only to emerge 3 days later with no memory of where they had been. Victor Mallory, whose discovery broke the case open, now refuses to enter the forest he once knew like the back of his hand. Some things aren't meant to be disturbed, he told Detective Reeves during their last interview. Some secrets should stay buried. The most haunting aspect of this case remains Clara's final warning. Beware the silence that follows the storm, for in its wake lie secrets meant to remain unspoken. What did she see in those final hours? What fate befell 6 bright young people whose only crime was trying to help those in need? Perhaps the most disturbing question is whether the discovery of Clara's journal was an accident at all, or if something wanted it to be found. In the words of Sheriff Blackwood, now retired but still haunted by the case, "Sometimes I wonder if we're not the hunters in this investigation, but the hunted. Those kids disturbed something out there. Now it knows we're looking for it." As mist continues to gather in the valleys of the Vale of Whispers, 6 families wait for answers that may never come. 6 names remain etched on a memorial stone at Westridge University. 6 brilliant futures extinguished in a single night of terror that left behind only a weathered journal and a warning for those who might follow. Some mysteries it seems the forest intends to keep. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, subscribe now for more Last Seen stories. Let me know in the comments which aspect of this disappearance chills you the most.